did you come about, like, doing the research for the social and political history? I mean, was that stuff you'd grown up knowing, or how?
Well, like, when I got back to Boston, I realized that, like, I didn't want to talk to anybody. And, it's a very Boston attitude. And so I just got, I got real deep into, going to the library and hanging out in the research room and, like, mainlining microfiche until I couldn't see anymore. And so, like, I just, I scrolled through tons of old newspapers and the Boston Public Library, besides being one of, like, the most beautiful places in the city and the best place to work unless it's raining, because that's when all the crazies come out. And, like, rich people tourist crazy. It's weird. Like, people that want their genealogy in, like, 15 minutes go to the BPL on rainy days. And they make it tough to get microfiche. And I resent them for it. But one of the things that the Boston Public Library has is the Underground Press Syndicate's complete archive. It was clearly put together by a bunch of really stoned hippies and totally, like, I don't even know what the organization was. But, like, it's got all of these, like, classic early underground newspapers, like, for Boston specifically, Avatar. You have the early versions of, like, the Boston Phoenix. You have the Real paper. They used to support 2 all-weeklies. 2! For all my all-weekly people in the audience, can you imagine that? Like,
when would that have been? Like, what era?
Like 72 to 84.
Yeah. It was only until a couple years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah, good point. As a former Dig Boston employee, I tend to forget that it was actually a newspaper, even while I worked there. One of the things that sent me to the library was the fact that I took a big whiz all over one of Boston's primary music institutions, the Rock and Roll Rumble, because Battles of the Band are stupid and the goddamn Draculas suck, and they won. And if any of you have known me for a long time, you know I have, like, a real issue with the Battle of the Bands concept. And so I got fired. Right? It worked out pretty well. Like, I'm pretty stoked.
Anyway.
Yeah. They had screwed me on, like, thousands of dollars, and then they were like, we're going to need this by 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. This band sucks! So do you, Jeff! Anyways, so I had some time on my hands, and like, it was just, it's just, you start making connections. And one of the great things about, like, microfiche and using journalism is that it really is the first draft of history. And that more than, like, a Google search or, an internet search, when you're looking for, very specific things in a newspaper, you get all of the context around it. And so like, when I was, before I pitched this book, I had been working on a pitch about a cult that I mentioned in the book called the Lyman family. And one of their big things, besides, like, feeding people acid and locking them in a room, was restoring old homes. They're actually one of, like, the pioneering groups of historical preservation. Like, it's totally, they put out, like, they do a really weird cover of Okie for Muskogee in, like, 71, and anyways. So I've been working on that, and, while you're, while you're looking for evidence of a cult from 50 years ago, those stories are on the same page as, stories about fighting the interstate or the John Hancock Tower, it's a building that's a major character in the book. And so, you can see these things unfolding simultaneously. and so it makes it easier to connect something like, tearing down a neighborhood to, punk or kids playing shows in weird venues. You can see it side by side. And so from there, the story just kind of like builds and builds, and you're like, oh, well, I know to be on the lookout for stories about this topic and stories about that topic. And one of the bummers about the length of these books is that I had to cut out a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about, like all the bank robberies and the bombings and like the riots. There were just too many riots. I couldn't keep them all in the book. Man, Harvard kids used to love to riot. It was like once or twice a month they would just like tear up the square for whatever reason. They're smart, wicked smart, as they say.
Hey, could you actually look?
Yeah.